Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone, episode number 1 million and... Well, actually, no, it's episode number 153. But the Skeptic Zone in the past week has reached 1 million downloads. And to all million of you, thank you. Let's shoot for another million. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. Now, this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone is a Michael Shermer special. Oh yes, Michael Shermer. Now, I know he's influenced many of you. He's certainly influenced me. And he's influenced Maynard. Oh yes, so Maynard and I take it in turns this week to interview Michael Shermer. An interesting approach. You get my interview at the top of the show. Then we have Michael Shermer at Skeptics in the pub and some reactions from people going there. And then we get Maynard interviewing Michael Shermer from a slightly different point of view. A Michael Shermer experience today on the Skeptic Zone. And this week's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Skeptic Bros. Oh yes, Skeptic Bros, the people who make the fabulous placebo band. I'm wearing three of them on my wrist as I speak. Placebo bands from Skeptic Bros. These are the answer, the skeptical answer to those ridiculous power balance bands and all their clones. Little wristbands with a hologram in them. Now, if you go to www.skepticbros.com, you can find out more, including how to order them. Now, if you do order one of these fabulous placebo bands, which come in sort of camouflage colour now, which is pretty groovy, and glow in the dark, and boy, they really glow in the dark, make sure you order 3 or 4 and wear 3 or 4, or at least 2, because then you get people asking you questions. If you just wear one, nobody takes any notice, but wear a couple, and then people will stop and say, why are you wearing 2 or 3 of those things? And then you can tell them exactly why. Exactly why. Well, it's a very short introduction this week. Why? Because we all want to hear what Michael Shermer has to say. Michael Shermer, who was visiting Sydney in the past week. So, sit back, grab your pipe and your hat, slippers, trusty dog by your side, armchair, newspaper, and hot cocoa, and enjoy the Skeptic Zone. I'm sitting back here comfortably in a nice hotel room with Michael Shermer. Hi, Michael. Glad to see you in Australia.
Good to be back again. My 4th trip to the land down under.
This must be your shortest trip, though.
Let's see. No, actually, when I did that round-the-world trip lecturing on a jet, we were only in Australia for like a day and a half, 2 days, something like that. We just were in Cairns.
Oh, yes. And so this time it's 3 days now, almost?
4 days, yeah.
4 days, woo!
Yeah. Right.
So you came over here really to attend the Melbourne conference, which was Think
Inc. Right. Inc. Yeah, sort of TED wannabe. And, it was well attended. It was like 900 people, and Neil deGrasse Tyson and myself and Ayaan Hirsi Ali by video link and a few others. It was good. It was fun.
But one day.
Yeah, it was one day. They should have, done the whole weekend. But, it's expensive to rent that place, I assume, that huge auditorium. But it was a pretty enthusiastic crowd. I mean, it was pro reason, rationality, skepticism, and all that is what they were promoting, science. But there were a lot of atheists there, and atheism was a big theme. Of course, Christina Rad was there, and that's what people wanted to talk a lot about that.
That's interesting. Are you finding that more and more, I mean, in all your years of skeptical work? I mean, we all cover the big topics. The old favourites are always there.
Yeah.
Psychics and all this sort of stuff. But more and more, it seems to me that atheism and religion are...
Yeah, I know, and it's interesting. I mean, I love the topic, science and religion and all that, and why people don't believe in God or why they do believe in God. But the skeptical movement, at least as I envision it, and specifically what we're doing at Skeptic Magazine, is pro-science. That is, you have to be for something. It's not enough to define yourself by what you don't believe. That's not going to get us there. We have to tell people what we do believe. We believe in science and reason and rationality and a rational society and the Enlightenment values that have come down to us over the centuries from the great philosophers and thinkers and scientists and naturalists. And we believe in civil liberties, and we believe in rights and equal treatment under the law. We believe in the progress of civilization is pushed forward by liberal Enlightenment values. Classical liberal Enlightenment values, and
equality and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Especially for women, which still isn't realized. Really.
Still not realized, but, much progress has been made.
Oh, sure.
And no thanks to religion for any of the rights revolutions and the humanitarian revolutions over the last 2 centuries. Say it's largely been driven by secular values that are derived from Enlightenment principles, beginning with the concept that people are not a means to an end, but an end in of themselves. And whatever you think our creator is, God or evolution, it doesn't really matter. The point is that, we have value, and therefore you can't treat people certain ways. That was a long time coming, in the history of 10,000-year history of civilization. And it's the kind of thing you still have to fight for. But religion's always been slightly behind the wave, not in front of it. They'll take credit for the abolition of slavery, for example, pointing to people like Wilberforce, William Wilberforce. And it's true he wasn't an abolitionist, but he was fighting against his own fellow Christians who were opposed to abolishing slavery, and which they defended on strict biblical theological arguments. So. Really, it's we who are on the cutting edge of that. By we, I mean not just skeptics, but anybody who thinks rationally, we would call them skeptics. By skepticism, I mean thoughtful inquiry. It's just science, a scientific way of.
I agree, and the word is always dogging us because to the general public, they'll never get it.
No, I know. Oh, the cynics. No. All that.
Yeah. What are you skeptical of? What don't you believe in? Not
right.
What you're absolutely right. What they don't say. What are you for? Oh, you're the guys who've got us to this standard of living through science, right? And why our children live past 3, and why we have all our teeth at 50 or whatever it is.
Right.
It's interesting. So, how do you ever take sort of the long view of society's progress and civilization? And if you did, what sort of stage do you think we're at the moment?
Well, I just read Steve Pinker's new book, comes out next month, The Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined. But it's not just violence. I mean, he's talking about everything, murders and homicides and rates of killing and wars and all that, yes. But also, treatment of blacks and women, spanking has declined.
Yes.
The death penalty is almost non-existent now, whereas virtually everybody had the death penalty. Like in England, he shows that there were hundreds of crimes you could get the death penalty for. There was like 240 crimes, just like 200 years ago, that you could be put to death for. Now, 0. Right? So what? I think we've come a long ways. How much further do we have to go? Well, I don't know what the scale is exactly.
Good question. Yes, there's no scale, of course. There's no end point.
But I guess I would just describe it, verbally as huge progress. We've come a long ways, and I agree with Peter Singer's expanding circle of sentiments, but I think we should expand it even a little bit more. Well, first, women and blacks now, and gays next, close. It's happening right now.
And very quickly too, comparatively, I think.
Yes, although I would have thought a little faster, but oh well. We'll get there. And so we're the last of the oppressed minorities, so to speak, atheists. I mean, it's hard to claim I'm an oppressed minority as a white guy living in Los Angeles. I mean, it's like not exactly like it's a big problem, but there are places in the world and in the United States where it's not so acceptable.
Well, the United States government, Richard Dawkins often says that any out-and-out atheist couldn't get elected to office.
Yes, well...
is that true, or is he overstating it?
I don't think that's actually true. I mean, there are some atheist congressmen who have, said that they are. President, I don't know, maybe not.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. But we're getting there. It just takes time.
Well, how long ago was it when the thought of an African American president was unthinkable?
Yes, right. Unthinkable half a century ago.
Yeah.
I mean, when Kennedy ran, it was a big thing that he was a Catholic.
Yes.
It's like, whoa, he's a Catholic. And I think there's a chance that Mitt Romney will get the nomination over Perry, hopefully. And he actually could defeat Obama if the economy doesn't turn around. So we could have a Mormon president. And it'll be interesting to see if that comes to the forefront. Like, do you wear the underwear? And do you really believe that Joseph Smith, read the secret codes through these little peep stones?
Out of a hat.
Out of a hat, yeah. I mean, do you really believe that?
I wonder where that expression comes from. You're talking out of your hat. I don't think so, but
yeah, I don't think so. No. Anyway.
And apart from that, I've been reading some of the, and I think I heard an audio report. You've run into trouble with the truthers over the years.
Yeah.
Why you specifically? Is that because you've been hammering the logic and the reason why?
I've been hammering them pretty hard every chance I get. Just because I don't know why it appeals to me so much. Is that it's just one of the goofier things I've ever heard. It's just so classically irrational in the sense of making basic logical fallacies. The conjunction fallacy, for example, the probability of two events happening is always going to be less than either one of them by themselves happening. And so we know planes crashed into the World Trade Center buildings. So the belief that controlled demolition also happened, you have to believe that both sets of improbable events happened at the same time. And furthermore, that somehow they planted the bombs at the exact same floors that the wings of the plane hit at that angle, because that's the angle at which the buildings began to collapse. You can see it in the videos. So somehow or another, the pilots would have had to know, okay, we got to hit floors, 73 through 82. And
inexperienced pilots.
Yeah, inexperienced pilots, right. And I had an email just the other day from one of the troopers going, about the asbestos thing, right? When they built the World Trade Center buildings, when they got up to like the 76th floor, there was this big controversy about asbestos, and they had no asbestos from the floors on up for fire protection. And so the pilots were told ahead of time, there's no asbestos in the from floor 73 on up, so make sure you hit that floor or higher, and they radio ahead and program the plane to hit at that. It's like, really? You believe this?
Yeah. But this is just one of them, right? This is just one of the theories.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of ones flying out there. Well, I shouldn't use that expression.
Yeah.
But out there about they weren't planes at all.
Oh, right.
And crazy things like this.
Remote control flown planes.
Or they had bombs strapped to them.
Right.
Yes, I've heard
that. The bomb strapped to them.
I've heard that one, that they were remote controlled. There was nobody in them, yeah.
Right, so then you ask them, well, where'd the passengers go? Because there were people. Well, they swept them off and took them to a warehouse somewhere.
All they have to say is, well, the U.S. government. Well, they can do anything they like.
That's right.
The U.S. government seem to have.
They're omniscient and omnipotent.
Yeah. They can't get the tax system right or the health system right, but they can make all these people disappear or whatever it is.
And what about the people that were talking to their loved ones on their cell phones?
Yeah.
Well, the FBI and the CIA had the special equipment where they can replicate people's conversations, and actually running a conversation with just goes on and on. It's just so absurd. So I hammer that pretty good.
It must do your head in. There's no end. I mean, you can't give them the fait accompli.
Right.
That's not possible for some of those people. Do you find that there's a similarity between the truthers and the climate change deniers?
Well, I guess in the sense of that there's no facts that will convince them. I mean, the ice cap on Greenland could fall off into the ocean, and they'd say, it's a left-wing conspiracy or something, you know.
Because, there'll be people listening to this interview, great listeners of the Skeptic Zone, who will now, their ears will be burning because they will consider that we're crazy, that we accept consensus on climate change.
Right.
It's a fascinating thing.
I understand where they're coming from. I was skeptical of the climate stuff for quite a while. I mean, when I was in college, the environmentalist movement used a lot of scare tactics, and they created this sort of dystopia world that we were all heading into, and overpopulation, and
I remember that. Yeah,
rainforests would be gone, peak oil would
see the world now before it's too late, sort of thing.
Yeah. And what happened? Well, what happened was science really saved us. We're able to feed those people now, unlike before, and the Earth can sustain more because of science and technology. And also they exaggerated. So the projections are hard to make, and the science wasn't very good in the 1970s, but it's really good now, right? So I kind of lost track of it for a while, and it seemed like there was a lot of exaggeration going on, But by early 2000s, I think the evidence was pretty overwhelming. There was just a lot of really good data. And I think the way a skeptic should think about it is the same way that we know evolution happened, that there's a convergence of evidence from multiple lines of inquiry. So the idea that climate science is sort of a conspiracy of sorts, and these guys are all in cahoots to get funding and that sort of thing. This is the same accusation creationists make about evolution. It's like they're all meeting on the weekends to get their story straight, And that's just not how it happens. I mean, evolution is understood through so many different fields of science, of scientists that don't even know each other. They don't go to the same conferences. They work in different fields, completely different fields. And the same thing with climate science. I mean, you got the glacier guys. They're one group, and they go to their own conferences. And the people that study clouds, and then you got the ecologists that study some obscure frog that has to breed with this kind of when these plants open, or some bird or whatever that. And these plants are now opening earlier and earlier every year because it's getting warmer and warmer earlier and earlier because of global warming. Now that guy, he doesn't know anything about clouds or climate modeling. He's an ecologist that studies, flowering plants, and he's documenting this shift, right? So that's how we know about the climate change. It's multiple lines of inquiry, this consilience of inductions that makes science so robust, and therefore, when a climate denier says, "Oh yeah, but what about this mistake that they made?" or what about this station, a temperature recording station that's in a parking lot, a black parking lot, the heat island effect. Well, I mean, do you think these people are idiots that do climate science? They don't know about the heat island effect. That they don't take that into account with this. There's thousands of these temperature stations that are nowhere near cities, and they're showing these constantly changing trends of the Earth getting warmer. So that's just one of these distracting things like the creationists use. Like, if you can't explain this, one little tiny thing here, then evolution is wrong. Yeah. And so, really, I think the skeptics are becoming. They're on the wrong side on this one now.
Well, it's where the word is really terrible.
Yeah, right. So,
climate change skeptic is firmly implanted in the public consciousness.
Right.
That's why I was discussing with you a little bit earlier, where I'm used to being. People say, "You're a climate change skeptic," right? Frequently, as they used to, not so much anymore. They used to say, "You guys are crazy. You don't even think we went to the moon."
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, the climate. Our skeptics who are climate skeptics are a different breed because they tend to also be liberal. They're not politically motivated like the right wingers. Right wingers, conservatives. They're against climate change because they think it's a liberal plot against business and capitalism and free markets, and those elite snobby liberals in Harvard and the East Coast liberals and all, they want to run the world because they think they know best, and they're using climate change as a way of manipulating, political public policy and things like that. Obviously, skeptics don't think that because they tend not to be conservative, right? Our skeptics.
They tend not to be. Yeah.
But again, most of the people that mouth off about it really don't know much climate science.
I agree.
I mean, when I read Plemer's book, when it first came out, Ian Plemer's book, I thought, hey, this guy's in our camp. Yeah, he debunked those crazy creations. He was one of the first guys that came out, lying for God.
He did a wonderful job.
So he had street cred with skeptics.
A while back, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when I read his book, I thought, okay, this guy's, I can trust this guy. And wow, the stuff he's writing here, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I ought to shift back and be skeptical of the climate stuff again. And I read it on a plane. And then when I got back, I called Don Prothero, my resident expert in these matters at Caltech, and he said, "Oh, no. Here, go to this webpage. There's like a list of 200 errors in Plemer's book, and not just errors, but stuff like it really looks like he intentionally lied about data sets and changed graphs to make them look different. I mean, it was really quite disturbing what I was reading." And I mean, I could check. You could check. You have his book. There's the webpage. You can look and see what he did. And it's like, this is really infuriating. It's not just that he made a few errors. It really looks almost intentional, So
I must admit, I haven't read the book, and I do tend to steer away from the issue in general.
Yeah.
Simply because, well, there are two reasons. One, I don't know enough about it. I really don't. I mean, most of my concentration and time is spent on the classical stuff, alt-med or placebo bands, which you have on your hand right now, or ghost and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
So that's where my strengths are. And the other one is because of the passion it stirs up, and people write to me extraordinary emails. So you must get these all the time, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're a skeptic. I'm a skeptic. So why aren't you skeptical of the climate stuff? I mean, isn't it obvious? We published a beautiful article in Skeptic by Tapio Schneider at Caltech, who's a professional climate scientist. And I commissioned him, just give us like, how do we know climate change is real? Give us like the 10 bullet point, the best graphs, the best data sets, what are they? We published it. And the letters we got, just hundreds of emails, about how crazy you are to believe this stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it's like the heat island effect, just throwing off all the measuring. Even though he says right in there, most of these measuring stations are nowhere near cities. It's like, did they even read this article? Just sort of a knee-jerk thing. I don't know. Now, Penn Jillette makes a big thing like a TAM. It should be okay to say, I don't know. He says, I don't know if climate change is real. And I don't know. It should be okay to say, I don't know. Yes, as a confession of I don't know anything about it, to know whether it's real. Well, I don't know anything about string theory either, or really I don't know much about most of cosmology or biochemistry or genetics. And yet we accept that. We don't say, I just really don't know about that DNA genetics stuff.
I guess there's a difference between saying I generally accept something, and on the other side of the coin, that doesn't mean I can go out and stand in front of the public and defend it.
Yes, right.
Then I would fall.
That's right.
I would fall down because I'd have a question pitched at me, and I'd be, what would I say?
Yeah, right.
Like cosmology.
So the climate thing is definitely politicized for sure, and it's certainly a hot button issue, so to speak.
So I wonder, and do you see anything on the horizon? What's the next big thing that's going to come along for skeptics?
Yeah,
I mean, I can't see the future, but
no, I don't know. Well. The anti-vaxxers thing is still pretty hot.
Yeah.
That we're still going strong with that. I just assume that the creation stuff will never fully die.
We've done a lot of good things in this country. I must boast about it. And whacking the creationists pretty hard over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been pretty successful. I mean, they're still there, of course, but they don't have nearly the influence they used to have. I don't know. I mean, our dear friend Eugenie Scott certainly has her hands full constantly.
Constantly, yeah. You'd think there'd be progress by now. It just keeps evolving, the movement,
so to speak.
So what will go next? Well, the intelligent design movement is much more sophisticated than the previous creationists. So they continue to have legs, but not quite as much as before. The Dover trial was certainly a blow against them.
Yes.
But they haven't gone away, for sure. They're still around.
I guess it's one of the things that makes our job interesting.
Yeah, right.
What's going to happen next? I mean, a couple of years ago, I'd never heard of the Power Balance bracelet.
Oh, right.
That came along.
Well, that's relatively new, isn't it? Maybe 5 years?
Yeah, this sort of the holograph and the rubber band sort of thing. I mean, I only first heard about it in 2009. That's been an interesting thing over the last few years.
A lot of American athletes use it, so they have proper balance in their sport.
Well, whatever it is, Michael Shermer, I'm sure you'll be receiving emails constantly.
Yeah, well,
the next best
you and I have job security in that sense. There's always going to be something for us to do.
There is.
Eternal vigilance. That's it.
It's the price of freedom.
And
our sanity. It cost our sanity some time ago, I'm afraid. So if our listeners don't subscribe to your magazine, and they should, of course, what's the best website they can go to find out more about you, your work, and the magazine?
Skeptic.com.
That's easy.
It's easy. It's very easy.
What a great website. What a great URL.
It is, very simple. Straightforward.
If you ever want to sell it, you'd make a fortune, I think.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know about that.
Skeptic.com. Michael Shermer, you and I are about to walk around the corner down to Skeptics in the pub here in Sydney.
Sounds good. See, that's a whole other movement that I never anticipated, all the social media and the growth of skepticism from the bottom up.
It's good, isn't it?
Every city I go to, there's, Skeptics at the pub, the Atheist Meetup group, the Facebook group, whatever, it's like they're everywhere.
It's good stuff. I agree with you. I've been heavily into this for just over 10 years, and this grassroots socializing, meeting, it just didn't happen.
Yep, that's right.
It's all evolved.
That's right, and no one directed it. There's no one in charge, which I like. We're having our own Arab Spring.
Michael Shermer, enjoy the rest of your short stay in Australia, and thank you for talking to the Skeptic Zone.
Hi, this is Carrie Poppy.
I'm Ross Blotcher.
Oh, hey, Ross.
Hey. We're from a podcast called Oh No, Ross and Carrie. We find out what happens when you show up and ask questions.
We've hung out with the Kabbalists,
the Mormons.
We've gone and gotten ear candles.
Gone to the Sikhs.
We show up so you don't have to.
So find out where we're going next.
We'll even have special episodes where we have famous guests like Brian Dalton from Mr. Deity.
You heard that awesome theme music. He wrote that.
You should come visit us at onopodcast.com or
facebook.com/onrack.
What the hell's OnRack, Ross?
ONRAC.
Oh no, Ross and Carrie.
That's our show.
That's so smart. Come join us.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, we're here about to see Michael Shermer. Now, why do you want to see Michael Shermer tonight? Why did you come along? You seen him before?
I have seen him before, yes.
Is he the skeptic?
More or less, I think, yes. I mean, there are some things like all the people. I disagree with some things he says. If we all agree with each other, as someone once said, if two people agree on everything totally, one of them's redundant. But I think he's done an enormous amount of good work for skepticism. He's also I like his breadth of what he does. He doesn't just concentrate on one particular area of it. Someone was asking the other day, how would you interview him? I said, well, he's written 12 books, all of which are which cover about 8 different topics. He's done the Holocaust denial thing, which is excellent. So he's done historical research. He's done research in psychology, which is his academic background. And so I think he's interesting as a skeptic person. He's not sort of one-dimensional. I mean, I'm not saying all people are, but most people concentrate on one area. They'll do alternative medicine, or they'll do paranormal stuff. He does the lot and does everything, and I think that's what's interesting about Shermer. But he's not like everybody else. It's
cool. That's great. Yeah, and you're along to see Michael Shermer here tonight. How come you're along to see him?
Oh, I've seen him before a few years ago in Sydney, and he did a debate with Professor John Lennox, and that was very good. That filled up the Wesley Centre. About 800 people there, and I think he really mopped the floor with Professor Lennox.
What was the debate that time over?
Has science buried God, was the question. Lennox was trying to assert that science proves the existence of God, and Shermer was arguing the opposite point of view.
Wow. And what are you hoping to hear from him tonight? What do you think is the hot button issue for Shermer fans today?
I really don't know what to expect tonight. So I'm interested to hear what he says on all sorts of issues about religion, other things like climate change. I want to see if he has a view on that. Be interesting, because I know a lot of skeptics in Australia have differing views on climate change.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of confusion about what the word means.
Yeah, it's very much a schism issue with skeptics, along with religion and belief in God. The global warming is another one, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and I think Shermer has published on that on his blog. So he comes down quite strongly in favour of the anthropogenic global warming and criticising the global warming skeptics, so-called.
We'll witness to see what he says tonight.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. Hey.
And why are you along to see Michael Shermer here tonight with the chicken and beef and salad?
Because I haven't seen Michael Shermer speak before in the flesh, and I'd like to. That's why I'm here.
Do you think he's a skeptic?
Yeah, I was thinking about him earlier today, and I thought he's a bit like a younger version of James Randi in terms of, skeptical stature.
And what sort of issue might you be really interested in hearing his opinion on?
I don't really mind. I think whatever he wants to talk about is probably going to be interesting enough.
Okay. And can I ask you why you're here to see Michael Shermer tonight?
I'm here because Michael was one of the first people that I was introduced to when I left the church. So for me, I hesitate to use the word hero at all because it probably doesn't fit the bill, and I don't think he'd like that. But for me, it was him and Richard Dawkins were the first people that I was able to get a hold of to learn about critical thinking and questioning my own beliefs and what the church was teaching.
Was it any particular book of his that did it, or just his general writings?
You know what? It was actually TED Talks were the first place I started, and he did a revision of a Carl Sagan's the baloney detection kit. Okay. So for me, those were the first two things, and then I'd moved into Dawkins' book from there, which was obviously quite enlightening to me at the time.
One of the book people's always references Demon Haunted World as a great start for critical thinking. I read Demon Haunted World, and it was a little bit dry for me, but Why People Believe Weird Things was something that came a bit more alive to me. Do you think he has a really interesting way of twisting things around?
I think partly because of his own background, which I've read a little bit about. I know that he's come out of a similar church setup to what I was in. His communication style was something that was quite familiar to me and was very easy to break through, and I quite appreciated that.
And why are you here to see Michael Shermer tonight? Why Michael?
Because he's the founder of the American Skeptics, so I've been coming to the Skeptics meeting fairly regularly, so I wanted to see what he has to say. And also I bought his book, so I want to get
Which book was that?
The Believing Brain.
Okay. And is there one topic you'd like to see him talk about tonight?
I'm not sure. I just want to get surprised. I don't have anything specific in mind. I'm halfway through the book, and I think it's a great book, so just want to see what he has to say.
Well, he can't tell you how it ends. That'll spoil it, won't it?
I don't know. Okay. Maybe.
And how come you're here to see Michael Shermer tonight?
Well, actually, to be honest, I don't know much about Michael specifically, but, I think that coming out to hear talks is a great way to learn firsthand about what someone's about.
Yeah, I mean, well, just looking around your table here, you've got people that are interested in atheist issues, in scientist issues, in philosophical issues. So, I mean, there's a great broad range of experiences you can have in the one room here tonight, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I heard Michael being interviewed by the Skeptics Guide to the Universe at one point, and from memory, he seemed really interesting. I personally feel that it's a good idea to take the opportunity to hear anyone, giving a skeptical talk, because, we've just had TAM Australia fairly recently, which is great, and just the more people we can show support that we can come out to see them, I think the better it is. And the excitement's building here at the Mez Bar in Sydney. I'm with Maynard. Hi, Maynard.
Oh, hi. Look, I'm really excited because I really want to have a chat to Michael Shermer about alien abductions, because I believe that he
Abductions,
came... Yes, mainly because I think he probably became a skeptic because he's in denial about his own alien abduction, which you can read about in his book.
You know, I didn't even think to talk to him about that.
You didn't?
No, we chatted about the 9/11 and truthers and climate change, but we didn't talk about aliens.
And as someone who's a major skeptic, I would like to know what he would concede to be a piece of evidence in favour of alien abduction or indeed UFOs as special. I mean, most people say they want a piece of the spaceship. What would be enough for him as a major skeptic in the entire world? Well, what would be the evidence for him? I mean, what would it be for you, Richard?
I don't know. A ride in a spaceship? Well, that's a good question. For me personally, or for science, there's sort of two different questions, because my level of evidence would be lower than the general scientific. I mean, I could be taken tomorrow on a UFO, right? And I'd be convinced.
Yes.
That's it. Wow, I've got the answer. It wouldn't mean jot to the rest of science if I couldn't prove it.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of credible people that have seen something which I believe most skeptics would believe would be an argument from authority.
Let's ask the man right now. Michael Shermer, we have an interesting question for you, as posed by Maynard.
Now, I'm just wondering, you as one of the major skeptics of the world, what would you consider an acceptable piece of evidence in favour of alien abduction or indeed the UFO phenomenon itself? A piece of the spacecraft? One particularly good eyewitness that you believed?
No eyewitness account's going to do it. You know, in biology, to name a new species, you have to have a type specimen, a holotype they're called. And you have to have, it's a physical specimen. Not a footprint, not a grainy video or a blurry photograph, not some hair that could be a dog hair, bear hair, an actual body that can be dissected and analyzed. Like when the platypus was first, introduced to Europeans, they thought it was a fake.
Yeah.
Right? But once you have it, you can, dissect it and so on, and you can tell whether it's real or not. That's what we need for an alien or a Bigfoot, right?
I particularly enjoyed in your book where you had your own alien abduction experience. How can you be sure that wasn't actually an alien abduction experience? Because I had the book, the spoken word book, and you sounded pretty convinced you'd been abducted there.
Right. Well, I woke up after my sleep break, and the aliens went away. That's how we know.
Why were you pushing yourself that hard bike riding anyway? I have to ask.
It was a bike race.
And I hope you won a large cash prize at the end of it.
No, there was no money. Yeah, sorry. For the love of the sport only.
All right, Maynard, you've had your question answered after all these years.
That's right. I'll get back to my chicken now. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome.
Now I'm with Skeptic Secretary Jessica Singer. Hi, Jessica.
Hey, Richard, how are you?
I'm well. Look at this, a big turnout tonight for Michael Shermer at the Mesbar here in Sydney.
And still more coming up the stairs right now as we speak.
Here's somebody else just signing in now. And we're also with Tim Mendham, the editor and executive officer of Australian Skeptics. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Richard.
It's really good to have these social events, don't you think?
Oh, it's fantastic, actually. It's a nice way of meeting people. They're catching up with names. We're putting faces to names. Yeah, it's excellent.
In fact, there are a number of faces and names here that I don't recognise that are new to me, which is a good thing.
Excellent thing, actually. There are quite a few people who have come along for the first time to one of these. So it's excellent. Yeah, very pleased.
So I think the message would be for people out there considering organising a social activity, a pub's a great place to do it for skeptics, it would seem.
I think a pub's a perfect place, especially right now we've got this room to ourselves, actually, which makes it very intimate. We'll have a decent crowd, we'll fill this room.
Yes, and our guest at the moment is circulating and chatting to people, so it's quite intimate, and everybody's getting to have a chat with him. And
we just gaze over there. There he is, Michael Shermer, just at a table now, chatting to some punters who've come along, which is really great.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's much more intimate and I think friendlier and nicer than another type of venue like a lecture theatre or something.
And you can have a beer.
And you can have a beer. Very important for me. Somewhere you can drink.
Yes, or as Maynard is doing. Hi, Maynard. Look at him hoeing into that chicken over there.
Oh, and eat, yes. Very important.
Just commenting on your hoeing into the chicken.
That is fantastic chicken. In fact, I would recommend that after a good discussion with Michael Shermer about alien abduction, that is a chicken in the salad to eat.
Well, let him go back to his chicken and his salad, and shortly we'll all enjoy Michael's talk.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it very much. It's actually the first time I've seen Michael Shermer, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Really? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I remember saw Michael when he was in Australia in 2008.
Yes.
And he spoke at the American Club.
Yes, I remember that day. That was a good day.
And, of course, he also spoke at TAM this year. TAM 9 from Outer Space in Las Vegas.
He did. I'll take your word for that because my memory is shot of TAM 9. I expect you're absolutely right, yes.
Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, I've keyholed this man in the lobby of his hotel. He may not even pay his hotel bill after I give him a hard time here. But the word skeptic comes up and people think skeptic, oh no, crackpots with evidence.
Crackpots with evidence. I like that. I may start using that. Well, we're scientists. We're critical thinkers. We're people interested in the way the world really works. We want to know the solved mysteries and the unsolved mysteries and solve them where we can. Anybody that's curious about any of this stuff would be a candidate for Skeptic Magazine or to join one of these skeptic societies. I think it's really just being, really technically what it means, skepticism, is thoughtful inquiry. And that's what we do. We just thoughtfully inquire into how the world works.
And how did you get onto this track? Did you have some sort of revelation or some experience or some almost paranormal event which made you thought, hang on, I need to rationalise this? Is that how you got started out?
Not so much a personal experience, although we've all had unusual. I mean, I've had deja vu experiences and out-of-body experiences, stuff like that. But no, I'm by training a experimental psychologist, cognitive psychologist, whatever, and am interested in how the mind works and how it comes to believe weird things. To me is another subset of these cognitive studies. Like, why do people believe anything at all? And so that sort of takes you into the world of trying to understand through science, not just the explanations for the weird things, but why people believe them even when there's no evidence.
Is there a psychological experiment you always want to run but can't because of an ethics committee?
I guess the 21 grams theory of measuring people when they die would probably not get approval by any ethics committee, going into the hospital and carefully weighing them seconds before and seconds after. But that would be interesting. Short of that, what we do is just try to trace where that story came from in the first place, and that's usually what you don't even have to run the experiment. You usually find out that these things get exaggerated.
Look, you've written that the paranormal is a gateway drug to science, and does that mean it works both ways? Is it can make people go off on tangents, or it can get people interested in finding out the scientific method behind anything?
Well, that's how I'm using it, is that people may not be interested in the philosophy of science or logic or critical thinking. It sounds boring and academic and kind of stuffy. But you might be interested in Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, aliens, conspiracy theories. Who really killed Kennedy? Did we really go to the moon? People go, yeah, I've heard about these things. What's the firewalking? Yeah, how do they do that? Is it really mind over matter? And before you know it, you're talking physics, chemistry, biology, evolutionary theory, cosmology, and your methods of science and all that because people are interested in these subjects.
And how have you found the Australian conspiracy theory situation and our situation here? Obviously, we have climate change and climate gate going on here. How have you found the difference between here and America?
I've been surprised that the climate deniers are as big as they are here. We don't have any death threats to climate scientists in America, so I thought we were the worst. Maybe you guys have given us some competition.
It's interesting you use the word denier there. Is that because it's just such an obvious scientific fact you use the word?
Yeah, well, so, are they climate revisionists or, climate skeptics? Climate deniers is a reasonable adjective, I think, because there's so much evidence now that you really just have to deny it, I think. And so that seems an appropriate modifier.
And you don't seem to have that level of intensity going on in the US.
Well, it's there. It's intense. Maybe not as intense as here. Again, no death threats. But, with our presidential election coming up in 2012, the candidates are feeling the need to speak out according to what they think they're supposed to say. Again, this is part of the problem. I don't know if these guys, they don't know anything about climate science. What do they know? Right? But they're saying what they think their constituents want to hear.
Yeah, well, yeah. Do you think America's just too ripped apart by the whole blue state, red state thing?
Absolutely. It's very black and white, very tribal.
Have you got a favourite candidate even?
Well, I think Obama will probably win if the economy turns around even a little bit, just make some progress in the next 12 months. If not, I think he'll probably lose. Doesn't matter who is on the other side.
How do you feel about the outsider candidates like Ron Paul?
I actually like some of Ron Paul's stuff. Of course, I'm a libertarian, so I would. He's a little nutty in some other areas. Some libertarians get a little conspiratorial. He made that comment in one of the debates a couple of weeks ago about the immigration wall built down there by Mexico is built to keep Americans in as well as Mexicans out. It's like, wait, what? And then, oh, yeah, that's that conspiracy about how, the government's building highways with the black helicopters and, they're going to put us all in concentration camps and, suspend all civil liberties. This is going to happen. I've been hearing this since I was a teenager, and it hasn't happened yet. So,
do you spend a lot of time yelling at the television?
I throw phone books at it. Old phone books that no one uses anymore.
Look, and just one last question. In your book, you talk about the dualism of the mind and how we think of the brain and the mind. Could you just explain that briefly, or is that just something we have to read in 500 pages?
No, actually, it's a very simple concept called dualism, that we're natural-born dualists. We tend to almost everybody tends to think there's two substances, corporeal and incorporeal, body and soul, brain and mind. There's something else out there besides this, the physical world, and the fact is there's no evidence for this. There really isn't, but we think that there is.
Isn't that a healthy thing, and that's what's made us want to make all these great scientific discoveries?
Well, like what? I mean, I don't...
well, maybe we sailed around the world to find out what was there because we were wondering.
Okay,
yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
The search for some mystery. Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, one of the great unsolved mysteries is consciousness. How does this even happen? Or mind. How do we construct mind out of just brain cells? Brain cells are it's just chemistry. It's electric meat with, chemicals and hormones swapping around in there. How does that get translated into what you and I are doing right now? Thinking and talking and being cognitively aware. I'm aware that you're aware. I know that you know that I know that you know. And how is that even possible? We don't know. This is one of the great unsolved mysteries. But that doesn't mean it's paranormal. It just means we don't know.
And you're saying it's okay to say we don't know.
In science, yes. Our brains are not comfortable doing that, but with training, you can learn to do it. I actually like it. I think it's kind of energizing to think, God, there's a lot of really cool mysteries out there that I don't know, and let's go and search.
And what's a quick way to train your brain for, not knowing? I mean, is there a quick shortcut to that?
Just say it. Just say, it's okay to say, I don't know. Go ahead, say it. I don't know.
I don't know, Michael, but I do know I'm very tired. You're very tired. It's time for bed.
Good night.
Hey, bro.
Oh, hey, bro. What's up?
Check it out. Finally, a Back to the Future invention that has come into existence. I present to you the hoverboard.
Dude, that's a BS band skateboard deck from the Eshy skateboards.
Yes, a skateboard without wheels.
Yeah, you're supposed to buy your own wheels and bolt them on.
And look, it has a placebo band right here in the packaging. That must be what powers it.
What are you on about?
That's right, your very own hoverboard. And SkepticBros.com has one to give away. Go to SkepticBros.com and click on the comp tab for more details.
You know that's a skateboard deck, right? Not a hoverboard. It doesn't actually fly.
You go get the car. I'll get my Michael J on, hold onto the bumper, and float down the freeway.
Sure, why not? That could be fun.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now I've got very exciting news. Oh, yes. I'm heading for Manchester. I'm heading for Manchester in the UK to attend QED in March next year. Cannot wait for that. More information as the months go by. You can find out more right now. Those people lucky enough to live in the UK, Google QED Manchester or QED Con and away you go. So I am absolutely thrilled that I'll be speaking at QED. Hopefully, some people will be listening. I'm also thrilled that I'll be speaking at the convention in New Orleans for the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry, SciCon in New Orleans, and that's towards the end of October. That's going to be fun. In fact, I'll spend a few days with Brian Dunning after that and chase a few ghosts or something. Anyway, thank you for listening to this Michael Shermer special. This is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.